he haunted the night, a ghost slipping through windows into homes into the darkest corners of California's heart. For over a decade, the man we now know as the Golden State Killer stalked the innocent. He raped, he murdered, he vanished. For years, he was just a whisper, a shadow. Police sketches, terrified survivors, cold cases gathering dust. And behind it all, a man no one suspected, a man hiding in plain sight. This is the story of Joseph James DeAngelo, the ex-cop, the predator, the husband, the father, the monster next door. 1980s California, foggy, silent night. He was just 34 years old, average height, pale skin, a narrow, angular face and sharp, piercing blue eyes. He wore a black zip-up hoodie, dark jeans, and gloves, always gloves. Neighbors remember nothing unusual, just a man in the shadows. But those who lived remember the silence before the terror, a creak in the floorboard, a cold whisper in the dark, and then hell. He was Joseph DeAngelo, but to the world he was faceless until DNA revealed the truth. Before he was a killer, he wore a badge. In the early 1970s, DeAngelo served as a police officer in California, first in Exeter, then in Auburn. He wore the uniform proudly, badge, hat, holster. But while sworn to protect, he was secretly studying his prey. He watched how law enforcement responded. He learned where they failed. He used that knowledge to stay one step ahead every single time. Behind the cold stare of a traffic cop was a man fantasizing about control, domination, and violence. And then, one day, he was fired, caught stealing a hammer and dog repellent from a hardware store. He walked away from the badge and into the night. Keith Harrington, 38, a strong man, smart, kind. His wife, Patrice to her friends, Mrs. Harrington in the reports, age 35, beautiful, gentle, trusting. They were newlyweds. They had no idea what was coming. That night, the Golden State Killer entered through the sliding glass door. Moonlight spilled into the bedroom. He tied them up. He made them lie still. Then he killed them. Patrice's hands were loosely bound, her soft brown eyes wide with fear. Keith lay face down on the floor, his body still, pajama pants soaked in blood. They were found the next day. Their murders would go unsolved for nearly 4 decades. May 4th, 1986, Irvine, California. Her name was Janelle Cruz. She was 18, tan skin, Latina, long dark hair. She worked at a pizza shop. She laughed with friends. She had dreams. She was alone that night in a quiet suburban home. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like, share, and drop your thoughts in the comments. She never saw him coming. The Golden State Killer snuck in through an unlocked window. What happened next was violent and cruel. Her body was found the next day, and after that night, he disappeared for good, or so we thought. Some women lived. They survived the trauma, the violence, the fear. One of them, age 28, brunette hair, wrists bruised and bandaged, sat on the edge of her bed, telling detectives what she remembered. She said his voice was calm, that he called her by name, that he whispered threats while tying her up. She remembered every second, and though her body shook, her voice did not. Her courage and the bravery of many others built the foundation of the case that would one day bring him down. She sat at her desk, drowning in paperwork, chain-smoking her third cigarette of the night. Detective Carol Daly, Sacramento County Sheriff's Department, one of the first female detectives assigned to the case. She had short, feathered blonde hair, wore a brown blazer with padded shoulders, and behind her eyes was a relentless focus. Her desk was always cluttered, crime scene photos, maps, transcripts, names. Carol wasn't just investigating rapes and murders. She was trying to outthink a phantom. She interviewed dozens of victims. She connected patterns the men had missed. She pushed her department and the media to stop ignoring the terror brewing in California's suburbs. Years later, she would be one of the few who said, "I knew he'd be caught. One day, somehow." Fast forward to the 2010s. The files had gone cold. But Paul Holes, an investigator in Contra Costa County, wasn't ready to give up. He had stubble on his jaw, rectangular glasses perched on his nose, and a face worn by obsession. He lived in a cold case archive, literally surrounded by dusty boxes, yellowed photos, and fading fingerprints. Every day, he walked past a whiteboard marked, "Irons equals GSK, East Area Rapist, Original Night Stalker, Golden State Killer." He believed they were the same person, and he was right. Paul Holes became obsessed with solving the puzzle. The answer, he suspected, would lie in DNA. In another part of the country, a true crime writer stared into the glow of her laptop screen. Her name was Michelle McNamara. She had auburn hair, pale skin, and a quiet intensity. Her desk was a mess. Notebooks, photos, coffee mugs, crime books, and one document labeled Golden State Killer Dossier. Michelle gave the killer a name the media would latch onto. She wasn't a cop. She wasn't a scientist. She was a wife, a mother, and a writer. But her obsession was real. She stayed up late reading police reports. She mapped out timelines. She interviewed survivors, officers, and witnesses. And she believed the killer was still out there, aging, hiding, but traceable. Her groundbreaking book, I'll Be Gone in the Dark, was almost finished. Subscribe for more true crime stories. When Michelle died unexpectedly in 2016, her death rocked the community. But her work would inspire the final pieces to fall into place. The killer's methods were always the same. It started with a shadow, then the back door or a window left unlocked. He'd slip inside silently. He moved like smoke, swift, invisible, deadly. Homeowners would wake to a masked man with a flashlight in their face. He tied up the husband, made the wife bind her own feet. He stacked plates on the man's back and whispered, "If I hear them rattle, I'll kill her." Then he vanished into the night. Police searched the yards. Dogs sniffed the dirt. But he always disappeared. Every crime scene told the same story: rage, control, power, and fear. The break came in a lab, not in a courtroom, not in a neighborhood, not from a tip, but from science. In a sterile forensic lab, a technician, gloves on, eyes fixed on the screen, loaded DNA into a computer. They compared crime scene samples to public genealogy databases, the kind people use to trace their ancestors. It worked. A distant relative appeared. Then another. Then another. Slowly the tree was built backwards, from second cousins to siblings to parents. And in the middle of that web of DNA was one name: Joseph James DeAngelo. He lived in Citrus Heights, still in California, married, retired, with a garage full of tools. Police ran a covert surveillance operation. They collected DNA from his trash and matched it 100%. It was him. After 40 years, April 24th, 2018, Citrus Heights, California. It had been decades since the last known attack. Most assumed he was dead or far gone. But when the news broke, it hit like an earthquake. A silver-haired news anchor sat stiffly at his desk, eyes focused, voice measured. Breaking news: the Golden State Killer has been arrested. Former police officer Joseph James DeAngelo, 72, is now in custody. For victims, it was vindication. For their families, it was heartbreak all over again. The man who'd haunted their lives, who'd been a faceless nightmare, now had a name, a face, and a courtroom date. And the world watched as justice began its long walk to the stand. He was no longer the strong young man in black. He was now 72, bald, wrinkled, frail, his eyes dull, like smoke after a fire. When Joseph DeAngelo entered the courtroom for the first time, he was in a wheelchair, emotionless, silent, weak. But survivors didn't see an old man. They saw the man who had stolen their youth, their safety, their loved ones. He sat in an orange prison jumpsuit, wrists cuffed. Behind him, reporters scribbled, victims watched, families cried. He never looked at them, not once. In that cold courtroom, under harsh fluorescent lights, the monster had finally been unmasked. Back to the late 1970s. California's suburbs stretched endlessly. Beige siding, brown roofs, backyard pools. These were the American dream. Safe, sunny, quiet. But now it's something else. It's a reminder that no matter how long it takes, evil can be found. Michelle McNamara didn't live to see justice served, but she helped deliver it. Her book, I'll Be Gone in the Dark, wasn't just a bestseller. It reignited national attention. It gave victims a voice, and it gave investigators new purpose. On her desk were her notes, a laptop still logged into crime forums, and one phrase scribbled in all caps: "IT's time to find." Because of Michelle, he was found. Her husband, actor Patton Oswalt, said it best. She didn't get him in handcuffs, but she got him into the light. Backyards, garages, sliding doors, windows left open. He knew which homes to target, which women lived alone, which children wouldn't fight back. The killer would crouch behind bushes, waiting. He'd climb in through a cracked window, shut off the lights, and wait sometimes for hours inside the house. His mask, his rope, his knife, all ready. When the families awoke, it was already too late. He wasn't just a criminal. He was a phantom of pure malice. And for years, he got away with it. The houses he entered still stand. The victims, those who survived and those who didn't, are not forgotten. Some families moved on, others couldn't.